Time for the J-body.
And although you might say it, you don't have to spray it, 'cause nobody's buying these old Cavaliers.
During early autumn, I want to rewrite my 90s high school years and extend the good times. Late nights at Dunkin' Donuts, racing home in Kevin's Cavalier before our licenses turn into pumpkins. Sun visor CD sleeves containing Before These Crowded Streets, Dex Drums and Rock and Roll, and whatever amen. We had Pioneer head units and zippered leather cases to hold the face plates and safely lock them in the glove box so no one would steal our head units while we were playing laser tag. Chevrolet released the Cavalier as a replacement for the Monza, that Vega-based Chevette apology car. When you think about it, the Cavalier was a delayed act of contrition for barfing the Chevette out onto the world 1 decade prior. This is the 3rd generation of the Cavalier, or J-body if you want to sound cool. And the Z24 package was the sporty J-body. It has a 2.4-liter transverse 4 with double cams making 150 horsepower and 155 pound-feet. The only similar priced mass-produced economy car that could beat it was the first generation Dodge Neon RT, because the Neon RT was 400 pounds lighter than the Z24, and they both made 150 horsepower. But the Neon RT only made 133 pound-feet versus the Z24's 155 pound-feet. And the GM LD9 motor was better built than the Mopar ECC motor, because the LD9 had the full weight of Big Daddy General Motor dollars behind it. And Money has always been GM's advantage. When they use it right, the durability of the L42, LD2, and LD9 engines made the Cavalier the staple of driver's ed classes too. I took driver's ed in one of these plastic travel toothbrush containers. Heck, even the shift gaiter was a toothbrush. I mean, this is classic GM. This is a classic GM move right here. Over-engineer one part of the car, in this case is the engine, and improvise another. I had like, oh, we have this strip down here. How are we gonna... Let's just take the crap that we use to clean off our golf shoes before we go into the pro shop. That thing that's on the ground, a little handle, those little bristles. Yeah, that'll do. And the brake pedal says anti-lock brakes. Just so you know. Man, I haven't seen one of these XM modules since Attack of the Clones. This is not a boost gauge. Cigarette lighters were still in easy-to-reach places because you're stopping at Sheetz for Swisher Sweets on the way home from school and you want to roll past Rita's Italian Ice puffing away because it's 1996 and vaping hasn't been invented yet. This 96 Cavalier is firmly planted in the 3rd generation, and it followed in the traditions of the consumers of that generation, borrowing pieces from others with firmer identities in order to strengthen its own. Just like Vanilla Ice took his cue from Queen and David Bowie, the 3rd gen Cavalier got its facelift cues from the 4th gen Camaro and Caprice. The more aerodynamic styling was one thing, but I guess the Cavalier also needed the larger dimensions because America. But the Cavalier had a strange journey away from America. We've always known the Cavalier here in the United States as the cheap Chevy, but it played different roles in different countries. Here's a history lesson, but it's a short one. Toyota was given the rights to sell the Cavalier in Japan as part of an agreement with General Motors. This was done in order to avoid restrictions on U.S. exports. A little tit for tat. So for a brief period, there was a left-hand drive version of this car branded as the Toyota Cavalier that was produced and assembled entirely by GM in the United States, but then shipped to Japan. Fine, but there's a problem with that. The LD9 2.4-liter engine exceeded the dimensions of a compact car in Japan, so the Toyota Cavalier ended up being subject to a heavy tax by the Japanese government, which made sales plummet. And yet, despite production on the Toyota Cavalier ending in mid-2000s, there was still a market for it. In short, some of the leftover vehicles were sold as used Japanese cars after being exported then from Japan down to Australia and New Zealand, among other places. You're gonna find the JDM Cavalier. That's probably where you gotta start looking. Australia or New Zealand. Chevy Cavalier, the student debt starter vehicle. What is it like to drive? J-body's being a lot faster than this. The steering is mushy and the automatic automatic transmission throws a temper tantrum when you call for the kickdown. The rear end and front end aren't on speaking terms. The engine growls, but you don't go much faster. And there's way more steering play than I remember. And the suspension makes every bump feel like railroad tracks. Ever go back and play Final Fantasy VII again? You think it's going to be an orgy of nostalgia, but just like drinking Surge, it's not the same. Because you're not nostalgic for the soda or the high wind. You're nostalgic for Christmas Vacation, an indoor drumline, the events that envelop the artifacts.
Let me be your ride to Discovery Zone. Don't listen to them when they tell you that you're too old. You're the closest friend and lover that I've ever known. This Cavalier means you don't have to go it alone. 'Cause I'll give you a lift and I'll give you your pick of a tape from my collection. This is 96. You're all that and a bag of these chips, and truth is you're more familiar to me than the back of my dick. Now let's get in this Cavalier and we'll try to forget that we're swimming in student loan debt. Let's bump Unfortunates, girl.